The federal budget has a firm date. November 4th will be our first concrete look at Prime Minister Mark Carney's plan to navigate Canada through not only a trade war with the world's largest economy, but an ongoing affordability crisis here at home. Joining us now from Ottawa is the Minister of Finance and National Revenue, François-Philippe Champagne. Welcome back to your morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Pleasure to be with you and start my day with you, actually. So it's great to be together.
Great to have you with us. Listen, your boss, the Prime Minister, has used the word austerity when describing what's to come, but we also know it's going to contain big increases, defense spending, housing, as well as new projects for infrastructure. I want to remind our viewers what you have signaled and said about what's to come.
We're going to have to make tough choices. We're going to be asking from Canadians to work together with us because they understand this is a transformational moment. This is nothing like business as usual. There's nothing business as usual in the world economy.
I want to ask what you mean by tough choices. Who is ultimately going to get less so others we can spend more in other places?
Well, I mean, I think you frame it perfectly in a sense. This is going to be a generational investment in our future. Folks understand at home, the world is very different. With everything that's going on in the world, our largest trading partner is turning its back on us. Our largest, I would say, neighbor is turning its back. So we need to reinvent the Canadian economy. The best analogy I've made is 1945. You know, in 45, when we came out of the war, our grandparents, our parents, they did this collective effort to put Canada on a strong footing for success for the next 50, 80 years. We're kind of in one of those moments. So what I said, you know, we're going to be ambitious in our investments because people understand if you want to have dividend, you need to invest. At the same time, we're going to be rigorous in our expenses. People have been tightening their belt for quite some time, so it's quite normal. What I've been asking to colleagues is to tighten the belt of the federal government so we can spend less on operating expenses, and then we can invest more in our future. So we need to pivot our economy. We need to pivot our industry. We need to open new markets. This is going to be a moment, I would say, in our nation history, a bit like you saw, like I say, in 1945, where you basically have to reinvent the Canadian economy. So it's going to require collective effort, but I have confidence in Canadians because we've done it before. We're going to do it again. We attract a lot of talent. We build ships, we build planes, we build cars. We have critical minerals, we have energy. We are the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with all the other G7 nations. So, you know, when I look at the fundamentals, I'm confident, but it's going to require us to work together to make sure we put Canada on a path for success for generations to come.
So far, what I've heard from you is the tough choices are going to have to be made by government. So I'm guessing crown corporations and government itself. But I want to ask you about the generation. You've talked about 1945. Well, that's the grandparents of the people who are going to bear the financial brunt of this, what you describe as a generational investment. So when you're talking about personal finance of the middle class, there's a rising cost of food. There's a rising cost of housing. It's even more costing more to borrow money. So how are you helping middle-class Canadians get by?
Well, you're totally right, Anne-Marie. I mean, the thing we've heard from Canadians is three things. First, they said affordability, affordability, affordability. The cost of living is the primary concern of Canadians. The second thing was around housing, make housing more affordable and build a strong economy. When it comes to affordability, you'll remember the first thing that the Carney government did was a tax break. Every Canadian who paid tax in this country got a tax break. It's 22 million Canadians because we knew that we needed to put more money in their pocket at a time where it's difficult. When it comes to housing, I think you've seen this is once in a generation. You've seen Build Canada Homes we just launched to make sure we have more affordable housing. It is true across our nation. We need to build more homes. We need to have more affordable homes. And at the same time, we need to pivot the economy because if you're in the auto sector today, or if you're in the steel sector, obviously the tariff that has been imposed by our trading partner is hurting. So we needed to be there to support our workers, support our industry, support the Canadian economy. So that's why I say this is nothing like business as usual because we have to be there for folks on affordability. We need to build more houses and infrastructure. And at the same time, we need to support our workers as we transition to a more resilient economy.
I guess that goes back to my first question then. Who are you taking the money from in order to do all of those things? Because this pool of money is finite, right? You can't just keep asking people to pay more. You may give them a tax break that puts the money in their pocket. You're going to turn around and take it back out when you're asking them to invest generationally.
Well, the thing that I've asked, and you've seen it, I think you mentioned it, the first thing is for the federal government to tighten its belt. That's step number one. You know, we want to spend less on operating expenses. In fact, we say we're going to balance the operating budget within 3 years. So people at home understand, we said we're going to spend less on operation. How you do that? Technology, processes. We just need to be better. You know, a lot of the things we have is systems of the 20th century to offer service in the 21st century. Look at, for example, the Canada Revenue Agency, which have asked a 100-day plan to provide better services to Canadians, streamline our services, better processes, because, you know, folks need to feel that they have value for money. So first thing is us as government, how can we do things better? Make sure we spend less, so that will give us more margin to be able to invest in things that will produce growth in our country. Investment in infrastructure, investment in housing, investment in developing new markets for industry. Sure. This is going to be a generational pivot. That's why I say this is like a generational investments like you see once in a lifetime. The last time I think was in 1945. This time we're going to do it together. But like I said, I'm confident because I know we've done it before. We're going to do it again and be far more resilient.
I want to ask you really quickly, Minister, just before you go, and we are against a hard count, so if I have to cut you off, that's why. I want to ask about the deficit. It ballooned to $62 billion. On Sunday, the Prime Minister said he's going to run a substantial deficit. In this generational investment, some call that years-long financial burden. How important is the timing of this? Are we paying for this through a deficit? And how long? When you say generations, are we talking 1? Are we talking 2? Are we talking 3?
Well, first of all, I'd like to talk about investment because that's a generational investment. So obviously, we said that there was a deficit last year. There'll be a deficit this year. But one thing that we need to see is that, in my opinion, Canadians will say in our budget that this is really an investment in the future. This is about putting Canada on a more sustainable path, reducing our operating expenses, increasing our investments, because that's the way you build a resilient economy. And at the same time, Canadians understand that, you know, once you have your largest trading partner that it's turning its back, when you see everything that's happening in the world, yes, we had to incur expenses to support our workers, but I would tell you that Canadians expect that from their federal government. They expect us to be there for the workers. They expect us to be there for them at a time which is difficult and to pivot this economy for success. That's what we're going to be presenting to Canadians.
Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne, thanks for joining us from Ottawa this morning.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.